In the heart of Pennsylvania, amidst the tranquil and unassuming town of West Pittston, lies a tale that has sent shivers down the spine of anyone who dares to listen. This is the story of the Smurl family, a narrative steeped in dread, fear, and the terrifying possibility that something far more sinister than a haunted house was at play. The Smurl family's ordeal began in 1973 when Jack and Janet Smurl, along with their 4 daughters, moved into a modest duplex on Chase Street. Initially, the home seemed like a sanctuary, a fresh start after their previous house had been devastated by Hurricane Agnes. But the calm of their new life was short-lived. Not long after settling in, the Smurls began to experience a series of bizarre and unnerving events that would stretch the limits of their sanity. At first, it was the small things, odd noises echoing through the halls, tools disappearing only to reappear in the most unlikely places, and foul, sulfurous odors that seemed to emanate from nowhere. The family tried to rationalize these occurrences, attributing them to the quirks of an old house. But as the months wore on, the disturbances escalated, shifting from mere inconveniences to something far more sinister. The once welcoming home began to take on a darker aura. Shadows moved of their own accord, slithering along the walls like living entities. The temperature in the house would plummet without warning, filling the rooms with an icy chill that seemed to seep into the very bones of the family members. Then came the voices, disembodied, angry, and obscene, echoing through the halls and mocking the family from the shadows. As if this weren't enough, the Smurls soon found themselves under physical attack. Janet reported being violently pulled from her bed by an unseen force, her body lifted into the air before being thrown back down with a brutal force. Jack, too, was not spared. He claimed that a demonic entity sexually assaulted him, an experience so horrifying that it defied rational explanation. Desperate and terrified, the Smurls sought help from the Catholic Church, but their pleas were met with skepticism. The local clergy visited the house, performed blessings, but reported nothing unusual. It seemed that whatever was tormenting the Smurl family was clever, too clever, perhaps, for mere mortals to combat. As the haunting continued, the family's hopes for a peaceful life evaporated, replaced by a grim resignation that they were being targeted by a malevolent force beyond comprehension. By 1986, the Smurls had reached their breaking point. Their home, once a symbol of hope, had become a prison, a place where shadows whispered of despair and darkness seeped into their very souls. In their desperation, they turned to Ed and Lorraine Warren, famed demonologists and paranormal investigators, who had made their mark with cases like the Amityville haunting. The Warrens arrived at the Smurl home with a mix of curiosity and dread, for they had seen what demonic forces could do to the unwary. Their investigation confirmed the family's worst fears. The house was indeed haunted, not by one, but by 4 distinct entities. Among them was a harmless elderly woman, a young girl who seemed far less benign, a man who had suffered a tragic death within the house, and a demon that used the other spirits to spread chaos and despair. The Warrens attempted to rid the house of its dark inhabitants through prayer and exorcisms, but the spirits were not so easily vanquished. Instead, their efforts seemed to provoke the entities further. The demon, in particular, seemed to revel in the torment it inflicted, growing more brazen and violent with each passing day. It was as if the house itself had become a battleground between the forces of good and evil, with the Smurl family caught in the crossfire. The haunting took a toll on every member of the family. Janet and Mary, Jack's mother, reported seeing each other in places where they couldn't possibly have been, phantom imposters sowing discord and confusion. The Smurl daughters were not spared either. They were thrown from their beds, heard pig-like grunts echoing in the night, and witnessed terrifying apparitions that defied explanation. As the Smurls' plight became public, the media descended on Chase Street, turning their nightmare into a national spectacle. Reporters, skeptics, and supernatural enthusiasts flocked to the house, hoping to catch a glimpse of the paranormal. Yet, the more attention the case received, the more divided public opinion became. Were the Smurls victims of a genuine haunting, or were they the perpetrators of an elaborate hoax? The debate raged on, with skeptics pointing to the lack of physical evidence and the possibility of psychological factors at play. However, the Smurls remained adamant that their experiences were real, too real to be dismissed by those who had never walked in their shoes. The Warrens, too, stood by the family, insisting that what they had witnessed was no mere trick of the mind, but a true encounter with the demonic. As Warren stepped into the Smurl family's home, a chilling sense of dread washed over them, a potent blend of curiosity and sheer terror. They had encountered demonic forces before, but nothing could have prepared them for the malevolent energy that pulsed through this house. The air inside was thick, oppressive, as though every breath was being drawn from a swamp of despair. Shadows clung to the walls, twisting and contorting as if alive, as if the house itself was a living entity waiting to consume them. Lorraine Warren, gifted with her psychic abilities, immediately sensed the malevolence that lurked within. It wasn't just one spirit haunting this place. It was a nest of darkness. 4 distinct entities prowled the halls, an elderly woman with hollow eyes, her presence benign but deeply unsettling, a young girl with a twisted, malicious grin that hinted at the horrors she could unleash, a man whose life had ended in unspeakable tragedy, his soul trapped in eternal torment, and then, the worst of all, a demon. This ancient, merciless force didn't just haunt the house, it commanded it, using the other spirits as puppets in its cruel game. When the Warrens began their exorcism rituals, the house responded with a fury they hadn't anticipated. The demon, far from being expelled, seemed to revel in the challenge. Every prayer, every invocation of holy power only served to enrage it further. The walls trembled with its anger, and the shadows deepened, coiling like serpents around the family. It was as if the very act of attempting to banish the evil only fed its appetite for suffering. This demon was unlike anything they had faced before. It was cunning, powerful, and sadistic, taking pleasure in the pain it inflicted. As the rituals intensified, so too did the violence. The demon began to manifest more boldly, no longer content to hide in the shadows. It started to physically assault the family with a brutality that was terrifying in its precision. It enjoyed the torment, savoring the fear it inspired. The house, once a sanctuary, had become a battlefield, with the Smurl family trapped at its center. The line between the living and the dead blurred as the demon unleashed its full fury. The Warrens could only watch in horror as the entity grew stronger, its attacks more vicious, the family's hope of escape growing dimmer with each passing night. For the Smurls, every moment in that house was a descent into a personal hell, where the demon's laughter echoed in the darkness and terror ruled the night. The house had become more than just a home. It was a vessel of pure evil, a place where the boundary between our world and the abyss was dangerously thin, and the darkness within was always waiting, ready to claim its next victim. For those who wish to delve deeper into this terrifying tale, there are numerous resources that recount the events in greater detail. From books and movies to first-hand accounts, the Smurl Family Haunting is a case that refuses to fade into obscurity, leaving behind a legacy as dark and enduring as the spirits that once tormented them.